have discussed what are alkaloids. So now we will focus on the different examples of alkaloids. But before that, let me ask anyone from the class what have they learned about alkaloids so far? When you say alkaloids, we refer to what kind of molecules? Yes. Tangaan.
Ma'am, ano siya itong question po?
What are alkaloids?
Alkaloids po, ma'am, is one of the ano po, nag-consist po siya of nitrogenous compounds and also it is bitter po.
Bitter taste. Okay. Thank you, Miss Tangaan. How about tabaranza? Any other information when you think about alkaloids? Anong una natin naiisip?
Hello, ma'am. Adong ko, ma'am.
Yes.
Kuan pod, ma'am, kanang nag-occur siya naturally sa mga organic compounds, ma'am, nga nag-consist of mga nitrogen atom po, ma'am.
Okay, nitrogen organic compound because they contain lots of carbon. Thank you. How about temblor? Can you give examples? Or meron ka bang alam na examples ng ating alkaloids?
Morphine. Morphine po, ma'am.
Morphine. So ano ba ang importance ni morphine? O, saan ba siya usually ginagamit?
Pain reliever.
Pain reliever. Is that Miss Temblor? Okay, thank you. Next, Miss Sarmiento, other than morphine, can you give another example of alkaloids? Very important alkaloids. Yes. Cocaine. So how about cocaine? Do you have any important information about cocaine? Anesthetic. Okay, thank you, Miss Sarmiento. How about Revita? Other examples other than morphine and cocaine? Important alkaloids.
Strychnine po, ma'am.
Strychnine. Okay. So do you have any idea ano ba ang action ni strychnine?
Antidote to barbiturate and opioid overdose po. Strychnine.
Okay. So it can be used when the patient are being overdosed with barbiturates. Okay, thank you, Miss Rivita. How about Miss Relox? Do you have any examples that you know about plants containing alkaloids? Or examples of alkaloids?
Caffeine po, ma'am.
Caffeine, yes, that is also an alkaloid. So ano ba ang ginagawa ni caffeine when it is being administered or when we obtain that in our diet?
Laxative po siya, ma'am.
Okay, meron siyang somehow no effect sa digestive system. Thank you, Miss Relox. Okay, so that is the example. So tingnan natin mamaya kung saan nabibilang yung mga different examples na binigay ng inyong classmates. So there are different types of alkaloids. So we will classify those different examples given by your classmates. Okay. So night alkaloids, somehow when we say alkaloids, they are composed of nitrogen. Somehow in their chemical structure, it contains nitrogen, and kaya siya din tinawag na alkaloids because most of their property is in line with alkaline bases. Okay, so we also discuss the how important is alkaloids in the history. So we have discussed morphine that is being isolated by Sir Turner. So if you already watch, sino yun? So if you have watched the video that is attached in the module, so there is a video about how Mr. Friedrich Sir Turner isolate morphine from opium. And then somehow gitest niya ang effect ng morphine doon sa, I think, three, including himself, gitest niya ang effect ng morphine. And also, because yun yung first time gitest ang effect ng morphine in a human, so somehow, naging, ano siya, kanang hapit sila, yung effect is hapit sa toxic effect. No, gumay na lang daw kulang pag take pa sila o kato na substance kato gi-isolate ni Sir Turner, pwede sila mamatay kasi very toxic si morphine. So somehow through the experiment of Sir Turner, um, he concluded that one of the alkaloid present in opium is morphine, one of the important alkaloids in opium. And also, very important that your classmate have then mentioned is the alkaloid present or present in cinchona, yung ating quinidine or quinine. So yun, very important siya in history kasi ginamit siya for malaria. So before, doon lang located si cinchona bark sa South America, but the Spaniards and the Portuguese brought cinchona bark to their own country, and then they used that cinchona bark for those people there in their country suffering from malaria. So that is one of the important alkaloids in the history. Okay, the morphine. And then, we also have classified alkaloids. So, meron daw tayong tinatawag na three main types of alkaloids. So, meron tayong tinatawag na true alkaloids, pseudo-alkaloids, and proto-alkaloids. And then, we also discuss how to isolate alkaloids. So, meron tayong tinatawag na method A and method B. And also, we have discussed what are the different chemical tests that we can perform to know if our substance or our crude drug contains alkaloids or not. So we all also have discussed those examples of chemical tests in our laboratory. Okay, so now class, the first type, okay, before that, I will record the Zoom. So by the way, ang ating ginamit na account ngayon sa Zoom class is yung free account. So expect na mag-end siya mga 30 minutes from now. Kasi may iba pang gumagamit sa paid na Zoom account. So after that, mga 3 p.m. daw, matatapos na yung ibang section. So tayo na naman ang gagamit. Okay? So the first type of alkaloids that we will discuss is yung ating tinatawag na tropane alkaloids. So take note, or if you're familiar with the structure, so pag may nakita kayo na structure that looks like this, so that type of alkaloid is considered the tropane alkaloids. Okay, so these tropane alkaloids consist or is also consists of 8 aza-bicyclo-octane nucleus. So ito ang tawag sa nucleus found in tropane alkaloids, 8 aza-bicyclo-octane nucleus. And then usually nakikita si tropane alkaloids sa different plant families, Solanaceae, Erythroxylaceae, and Convolvulaceae. So these tropane alkaloids are derivatives of tropine. It is composed of pyrrolidine and piperidine. These tropane alkaloids are esters, so they can form esters when they are combined with our acids. And the esters of tropic acid could be detected using Vitali-Morin reaction. That is one also of the tests to perform to know if your food drug contains tropane alkaloids or not. The acid presence in the when combined with tropane alkaloids can be tropic acid and atropine. Atropic acid form in apoatropine. Other acids that can combine to alkaloids are tiglic acid, acetic acid, isobutyric, and isovaleric acid. So the alkaloids isolated from the plant families given, the Solanaceae, Convolvulaceae, so they rich in tropane alkaloids. And also, these different plant families are considered to have a toxic properties because they contain tropane alkaloids. So somehow, nagkakaproblema because this plant is have a colorful na color, no? So madaling ma-attract yung mga different animals as well as mga children. So for example, in the picture, so yun ang picture sa baba, yung parang merong berry. So that is the picture of the henbane or Atropa belladonna. So somehow yung mga different infants, no, pwede sila ma-attract at kainin yung mga different berries. So that instances can cause toxic effect for those who obtain these toxic properties. Many of the plants in Solanaceae are responsible for their toxic effect. One of that one is the tropane alkaloids. Before daw, in the history, Cleopatra, di ba, we somehow familiar with the name Cleopatra. So I think it's a wife of the king in Egypt somehow. I'm not that familiar, pero di ba, gina-consider siya as one of the most beautiful person sa history. So si Cleopatra daw have tested the effects of tropane alkaloids present in henbane and the Atropa belladonna or the deadly nightshade on her slaves, no? So, and also nakita niya that this, the effect is somehow deadly. So, she found that this plants contains toxic toxic substance. And also the different wives of the Roman emperor, the wives of Augustus and Claudius use the atropa belladonna or the deadly nightshade to murder their enemy, yung kanilang enemy na mga Romans. And also other plant that contains tropane alkaloids, we have the mandrake or the mandragora officinarum. So it is considered to have aphrodisiac properties. So it can increase sexual desire. And also we have scopolamine or also known as hyoscine can also have a toxic effect if it is obtained in large quantity. Okay, so another or the first example of plants that contain tropane alkaloids is the belladonna, also known as deadly nightshade. That's her, baneworth, black poison black cherry, and folia belladonnae. So if you can see in their picture, so somehow si belladonna contains a somewhat like similar to berry. So kaya madaming mga bata ang pwede ma-confuse of eating this type of plant, that which is very deadly. So belladonna is consist of the dried leaves and flowering tops of the plant Atropa belladonna. And also the name Atropa belladonna class or belladonna I think is beautiful lady. Kasi somehow ang effect niya class is ginapadilate niya ang pupil. So before daw, pag dilated daw imong pupil, somehow gina-considered ka as beautiful. So somehow yan din ang ginagamit ni Cleopatra para ganun ka dilated ang kanyang pupil. So somehow, kaya siya considered as the one of the beautiful women in the history. And also, Atropa belladonna contains a total of 0.35% alkaloids which consist of hyoscyamine. So other than hyoscyamine, these are the different alkaloids present in Atropa belladonna, the levohyoscyamine, atropine, and belladonine, and other important other alkaloids, okay? And this one are the structures of hyoscyamine, atropine, and belladonine. So if you can see, they have the structure of tropane alkaloids. Addition of ammonia to alcoholic solution of scopolamine shows blue fluorescence. This test is useful to detect if the person is being poisoned with belladonna. Okay, so this drug or this belladonna is used as adjunct therapy in the treatment of peptic ulcer, digestive disorder, for example, spastic, ulcerative colitis, so that is the condition class wherein the colon is inflamed, diarrhea, diverticulitis, and pancreatitis. And also because it contains atropine, it is considered as an anticholinergic drug. This belladonna is used to control excess motor activity in the GI tract, and thus it can control spasm. So ginagamit din to siya for spasm. Belladonna is anticholinergic, narcotic, sedative, diuretic, and mydriatic. So when we say mydriatic is a drug that causes the pupils to dilate. So just remember the letter D, meaning mydriatic or dilate. So for example, in the picture, so that is the effect of mydriatic or mydriasis. So it dilates the pupil. And also, belladonna have an anodyne effect. So when we say anodyne, it can somehow decreases the sensitivity of the brain so that malesen ang pain na nafe-feel ng isang pasyente. And also, other than that, belladonna can relieve the spasm in the GI or respiratory tract And thus, belladonna acts as parasympathetic depressant, or they have an anticholinergic effect. Next, drug that contains tropane alkaloid. So we have the datura from consists of the dried leaves and flowering tops of the Torah metel. So from the family also same with Atropa belladonna, they are from Solanaceae. So the Torah herb contains a total of 0.5% alkaloids, which contains hyoscine or scopolamine. So we have discussed this one na in our laboratory. Other name of hyoscine is scopolamine, the main alkaloid present in the toramitol. Also, it contains L-hyoscyamine or scopoline, and also atropine at a very low quantity. But the main alkaloid found in the toramitol is scopolamine or hyoscine. Next, to know if your crude drug contains the toramitol or not, so one test that we can perform is Vitali-Morin test. So you will subject your drug that contains tropane alkaloid with fuming nitric acid. You will evaporate it to dryness and add methanolic potassium hydroxide. And if you produce a violet coloration, meaning your crude drug contains a tropane alkaloid. Other tests to perform is you add silver nitrate solution in your solution of hyoscine or in your solution of crude drugs, and if you will form a yellowish white precipitate that are insoluble in nitric acid or soluble in dilute ammonia, meaning your crude drug contains a tropane alkaloid. What are the uses of the toramitol? So they can be used, or in Ayurveda, the toramitol is considered more efficacious or more toxic. It is used in the manufacture of hyoscine or scopolamine. It also exhibits parasympatholytic, and it also have anticholinergic and depressive action in the CNS. So they are used in cerebral excitement, asthma, and cough. And somehow, yung mga Rajput mothers give the extract of the turamitel to their infants that are female, because somehow, di ba, if you're familiar with the history, some of the tribes don't want to have a female babies, because they only want, because they perceive female before as a weak or pabigat lang sa kanilang tribe. So somehow this tribe don't want to have a female infant, so they just poison them with the extract of the toramitel, which is a very sad, no, very sad story na meron palang mga ganitong nangyayari before. Next is the drug or the plant called stramonium. Other name is thorn apple, jimson, or Jamestown weed, devil's apple, apple of Peru, or Folia stramoni. So it consists of the dried leaves and flowering tops of the Tora stramonium, or the Tora tatula, from the family Solanaceae also. This stramonium consists of not less than 0.25 alkaloids, mostly hyoscyamine. So, kanina si Datora Mittel contains hyoscine. Si Datora stramonium usually contains hyoscyamine. So other constituent of our stramonium, the main alkaloids present is hyoscyamine and hyoscine. It also contains albumin and atropine. So atropine daw is formed when the hyoscyamine undergoes racemization. At the time of collection, these alkaloids are usually present in the proportion about 2 parts of hyoscyamine to 1 part of hyoscine. But in young plants, hyoscine is the predominant alkaloids. Okay, so depende pala ang amount ni hyoscyamine kay hyoscine kung gaano ka young yung inyong nakuha na plant sample. Pag young, mas greater ang proportion ni hyoscine. Pag medyo matured yung plant mo, na the torus ramonium, mas madami kang makukuha na hyoscyamine. Okay, so this ammonium also contains 6-hydroxyhyoscyamine and other important chemicals. So these are the structure of hyoscyamine and scopolamine. So tingnan natin ang kanilang difference. Okay, so if you can see the difference of the two, si scopolamine or si hyoscine contains oxygen in their tropane nucleus or their tropane na structure. Unlike hyoscyamine, wala siyang oxygen dito. So that is one of the difference between in terms of the structure of hyoscyamine and scopolamine. Other than that, they are the same. So ito lang ang nagkaiba, yung oxygen present in scopolamine. Uses. So the Turus rhamonium is used as narcotic, antispasmodic, and anodyne. Anodyne is a substance that decreases the sensitivity of the brain, thus can have lessen ang pain felt by the person. And also this drug can relieve the spasm in the bronchioles. That is why it is also used in asthma. They can also be used in the treatment of Parkinsonism, boil, sores, and fish bite. Okay, so ano ba ang fish bite? Next, they can also be used to treat earache. And the fruit juice can be used to cure dandruff and falling hair. Next, we have the hyoscyamus, okay? Other name is henbane, hyoscyamus, hog's bean, Jupiter's bean, casilata, casilago, or symphonica, okay? Hyoscyamus consists of the dried leaves and flowering tops of Hyoscyamus niger. Still, they are from the family Solanaceae. It contains not less than 0.05% hyoscyamine. So the chief constituent of henbane is the alkaloid hyoscyamine, and it also contains a small quantity of atropine hyoscine. Okay. Other proportion of alkaloids in the dried drug varies from 0.05% to 0.14. Other constituents of your henbane is a glucosidal bitter principle called hyoscytrizine. Okay, so that is the glucosidal bitter principle of henbane. The chief constituent of the seeds of the henbane consists of hyoscyamine and a small portion of hyoscine. It also contains 20% fixed oil. Okay, so these are the balik-balik lang, no? So we have discussed na the difference between hyoscyamine and scopolamine. Scopolamine, meron siyang oxygen. Okay, henbane is used as antispasmodic, hypnotic, and diuretic. It can also be used as narcotic. It has a similar action with benaldona and stramonium, but between the three of them, this henbane have a milder effect. Because of the presence of hyoscine, it tends to check secretion and to relax spasms in the involuntary muscles. Narcotic effects of its hyoscine can lessen pain and have um, somnificient action. It can also be used to relieve pain when the bladder is inflamed or the condition cystitis. Next, under pa din tayo kay tropane alkaloids pa din. Say, coca, other name cuca, cocaine, Fullium cocae, Peruvian coca, Java coca, and Bolivian coca. Okay, this coca is consists of dried leaves of erythromycilon or erythoxylon coca with a variety of Sprotianum, also erythroxylon, troxylense rusby. So, other family that contains tropine alkaloids is erythroxylaceae. So, solanaceae, erythroxylaceae, and meron pa kanina yung, ano yun, nakalimutan ko. Chemical constituents of your coca contains an alkaloid, cocaine, anamyl cocaine, troxylene, or cocamine. So, troxylo or Peruvian leaves contain more alkaloid than Bolivian cocaine. Java coca contains tropa, cocaine, and other 4 yellow crystalline glucosides. The action of coca will depend on their principal alkaloid, cocaine. It has a stimulant action. It can be chewed to relieve hunger and fatigue, but this can also cause hallucinations. So kaya somehow, 'di ba, if you're familiar with the news, so this cocaine is one of the dangerous drug or regulated or somehow a drug that can cause addiction. So kaya gina capture jud tanan ng mga people who are engaged in distributing or selling cocaine. It is also have or use in cerebral and muscle stimulant. It can relieve nausea, vomiting, pain, and thus it can also have an anesthetic action. Next, we have the duboisia or corkwood or cork tree. So we have discussed this one in the laboratory. This is one of the plant that contains hyoscine. Duboisia consists of the dried leaves of Duboisia monoicotyledonum, Okay, so we have stopped on Duboisia. So as what I have mentioned kanina, Duboisia, we have discussed this one or we have somehow discussed that Duboisia also contains tropane through our laboratory. Okay, so Duboisia consists of dried leaves of the tree Duboisia myoporoides, Duboisia hopodi, or Duboisia leachhardi. They are also from the family Solanaceae. So, Duboisia myoporoides is considered the chief commercial source of scopolamine. Other name is hyoscine and also atropine. It contains hyoscyamine which is converted to atropine during extraction. Along with this alkaloids, it also contain norhyoscyamine, tiglyoidine, valtropine, and tiglyoxytropine. The synthetic process for scopolamine and atropine is very costly. Thus, the manufacturer rely on the natural source of atropine and scopolamine. That is why they obtain mostly their atropine and scopolamine to the Boeotia. So atropine is considered as a colorless crystal with a bitter taste, no odor, soluble in chloroform and alcohol, and the racemic form of hyoscyamine. So this one class is the atropine, and this one is the hyoscyamine. The chief constituent of the Boeotia hupudi naman, so other sources of the Boeotia, was found to be nicotine and non-nicotine, which reported to consist of 25% of the dried weight of the plant material. The Boeotia leaves are the main source of atropine and scopolamine, and atropine is the parasympatholytic drug or tinatawag din natin siya as anticholinergic drug. It causes a stimulant action and can be used as an antidote for pilocarpine, physosigmine, and other choline esters. It can relieve bronchial spasm. It can suppress gastric secretion in peptic ulcers. So we're talking about the uses of your atropine, which is from or one of the components of the Boeotia. It is used to reduce tremor and rigidity in Parkinsonism. And as what I have mentioned, atropine can cause mydriasis or it can dilate the pupil. Other chief or other alkaloids found in the Boeotia, we have the scopolamine used in the treatment for air and sea sickness and also can be used for stomach ulcer. It can have a sedative, hypnotic, mydriatic effect, and its alkaloid can somehow be used as a substitute for atropine. It can also be used, the scopolamine, as an antidote for coffee and lemon juice. I know when you, sorry, I will clarify. So if you are um, having or if your patient is having an overdose with scopolamine, you can give your patient coffee or lemon juice. Okay, so that is our tropane alkaloids. Okay, I will ask question first. Bangkailan? Is Miss Bangkailan present? Miss Bangkailan? How about Bangkil? Alimpolo. Miss Alimpolo, what are the important information you have learned about tropane alkaloids? Miss Alimpolo, nandito ba si Alimpolo? How about Benitez? Anong mga important information that have you learned about our discussion on tropane alkaloids? Benitez? Wala. Okay, how about Bontour? Bontour? Wala din. How about Briones?
Yes po, ma'am. Ma'am,
Oh.
madungog po.
Yes?
Ano po, ma'am, about propane alkaloids is that mostly sa iyang mga constituents sa plant containing propane alkaloids kay mostly sa ila ma'am kay atropine, hyoscyamine, hyoscine. And then, naalala po na po ma'am nga katong plant na henbane or Hyoscyamus niger and ang katong Atropa belladonna kay bawal siya sa mga infants. And then, mostly po sa mga tropane alkaloids, ma'am, kay member sila sa Solanaceae family. And kanang most of the plants po, ma'am, kay mga CNS stimulants din, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Miss Briones. How about Miss Pilarion? What are the important information you have learned about tropane alkaloids?
So, ma'am.
Yes, Seska?
Kanang gamay ra kog naabtan, ma'am. Kato lang sa sa parts sa tong na atropine o ano ba? Atropine o scopolamine. So, ang
Okay.
atropine kay sympathetic siya, ma'am. Then, ang katong scopolamine kay para sa mga motion sickness or air or seasickness po, ma'am.
Okay. So, atropine is anticholinergic drug, no, para sympatholytic. Okay, thank you, Miss Pilarion. Okay, now we will proceed to indole. Okay, indole na tayo, indole alkaloid. So this is the structure of your indole alkaloid. So you have benzene and then it is attached with a five cycle with a nitrogen. Okay, fuse siya na dalawang cyclic structure. So indole is a benzopyrrole in which the benzene and the pyrrole ring, okay, benzene to siya tong 6-membered and the pyrrole is the 5-membered ring through 2-3 position of the pyrrole. So this one is the pyrrole. So nagkadikit si benzene at si pyrrole sa 2-3 position ni pyrrole. So 1, 2, and 3. The indole nucleus is found in a large number of naturally occurring compounds. Its commercial importance as a component of perfume. And then we have isoindole. So this is the isomer of benzene pyrrole ring. So if you can see the difference, nag-fuse si pyrrole at si benzene kay isoindole sa 3 to 4 position. And then, this isoindole is not stable compared kay indole molecules. Indole was first obtained by Adolf von Baeyer in 1866. So the interest in indole chemistry is revived in 1930 because they have considered that indole is discovered from the amino acid tryptophan. So if you can remember, tryptophan is amino acid that contains indole alkaloids. And also indole is also found in the plant growth hormone heteroxine and other important alkaloids. So it was shown that 3-methyl-indole or skatole is produced with indole during pancreatic digestion or decomposition of proteins. Thus, many of indole molecules are present in the intestine and also in the feces. Okay, next we have the medicinal and the important biochemical aspect of our indole nucleus or indole alkaloid. So, for example, serotonin, it also consists of an indole molecule. It is identified as a metabolite in the brain, and also another important chemicals that contains indole is the psychomimetic, or a substance that mimics psychosis, psilocin and psilocybin from mushroom. The tranquilizer reserpine and melanin pigments also contains an indole nucleus. So remember, indole is a structure that contains benzene and a pyrrole cyclic structure. Okay, so these are the important chemicals that contains an indole nucleus. So we have the reserpine, which is an antihypertensive drug, or serotonin, a neurotransmitter, somatiptan, indomycin, indomethacin, and pindolol. All of this contains an indole nucleus. So indole is a colorless crystalline solid. The molecule is consists of a planar, and it has a good solubility in different types of solvents. It can dissolve in petroleum, ether, benzene, chloroform, or even in hot water. The solubility in cold water is only 1 is to 540. Thus, water is a good solvent for recrystallization of indole. Indole will also form salts with strong bases and strong acids. Next, we have or examples of plants that contain indole alkaloid is the ergot, also known as rye ergot, Cicali cornutum, spurgery, ergot or ergota. Ergot is the dried sclerotium of a fungus, Claviceps purpurea, belonging to the family Clavicipitaceae. So this fungus develop in the ovary of the rye plant Cicale cereale. So okay, take note, ergot class is not the plant, okay? Ergot is the dried fungus named Claviceps purpurea, and this fungus tumutubo lang siya sa rye plant that is called the Cicale cereale. Okay, take note of that. Ergot should yield about 0.15% of the total alkaloid, ergotoxin, and a water-soluble alkaloid, ergonovin. Okay, this is the life cycle of the fungus Claviceps purpurea, which is a parasites and process to these different stages, or these are the different stages on how they will affect the rye plant. So the first stage of the contamination of fungus to the rye plant is the honeydew or the asexual stage. Next is the sexual stage, and lastly the ascospore stage. Next is the chemical constituent of our ergot. The large number of alkaloids has been isolated from ergot. The most important alkaloids, we have the ergonovin and ergotamine. So on the basis of their water solubility, we will classify the two. A water-soluble group is composed of ergometrin, also known as ergonovin, and water-soluble groups consist of ergotamine and ergotoxin. Okay? So water-soluble group, we have the ergometrin, other name ergonovin, for example, the ergometrin and ergometrenin. Water-insoluble naman, we have the ergotamine and ergotoxin group. Ergotamine group consists of ergotamine, ergotaminin, ergosin, and ergosinin. Ergotoxin Ergotoxin group, which is also a water-insoluble group, consists of ergocristine, ergocrystinine, ergocryptine, ergocryptinine, ergocornine, and ergocorninin. Okay, so this one class is the structure of your ergot alkaloids. Okay, so this one is your ergometrine. So this one is the indole nucleus. So meron tayong benzene and meron tayong pyrrole. Okay, next we have the ergotamine naman. Also consists of an indole nucleus. And then we have your egotoxin. So itong dalawa is insoluble to water. And then this one is soluble. Okay. All of them consist of the indole alkaloid. Okay, ergot is oxytoxic, so meaning it can contract the uterus, vasoconstrictor abortifacient, and is used to reduce postpartum hemorrhage. Lysergic acid diethylamide or LSD is obtained by partial synthesis of lysergic acid, a potent specific or a potent specific psychotomimetic. So ito class, so hindi ko pala siya nasabi kanina. Balikan natin ang structure. So this one, if kadali lang class, I want to be sure. Okay, so kaya na-mention kanina class si lysergic acid dito sa ergot alkaloids because this one class, this structure of ergotamine, so I will just encircle this structure of ergotamine, this one, so this is the lysergic acid. Okay, this is the lysergic acid. Kaya one or the lysergic acid derivative can also be obtained from ergot or ergotamine, which is LSD is one of the powerful psychomimetic, so it can mimic psychosis. So LSD or lysergic acid diethylamide. So it can also be obtained from the synthesis of lysergic acid found in ergotamine. Next, we have the ergometrine. So this one is the water soluble. It's oxytocic and can be used in the delivery of infants or baby because it can stimulate the contraction of the uterus. Only ergometrine Only ergometrine produces an oxytocic effect. Ergotoxin and ergotamine have a different action. Ergometrine is water soluble in water and also in alcohol, also known as ergonovine. Ergotamine or the semi-synthetic dihydroergotamine salts are used as analgesic for the treatment of migraine. Lysergic acid diethylamide can be prepared from the partial synthesis of lysergic acid. Okay, we have mentioned that one already. Okay, so those are the different examples of ergot alkaloids. Next, we have the Rauwolfia. Okay, Rauwolfia, other names Sarpaganda, Chandrika, Chutachan, and Indian snake root. Rauwolfia consists of the dried roots of Rauwolfia serpentina from the family Apocynaceae. Okay, so that is Rauwolfia also contains of an indole nucleus. It contains 0.7 to 2.4 total alkaloids, from which more than 80 alkaloids are already been isolated. The prominent alkaloids from Rauwolfia are reserpine, resinamine, gamma-reserpine, recidine, robicin, and diserpidine. Other alkaloid components, we have ajmalin, ajmalinine, ajmalisin, serpentine, serpentinine, euhambinin, reserpinine, and others. So tingnan natin ang indole alkaloids sa mga different components or alkaloids present in Rauwolfia. Okay, this one is the indole nucleus of serpentine. We also have the reserpine, euhimbine, the resinamine, and also ajmalisin. Okay? All of these alkaloids is considered the indole alkaloids from Rauwolfia. Rauwolfia is used as hypnotic, sedative, and antihypertensive. It is specific for insanity. It can reduce blood pressure and cures pain due to irritation of the bowel. It can also be used during labor to increase uterine contraction and in certain neuropsychiatric disorder. Ajmalin, which is indole alkaloid also from Rauwolfia, have pharmacological properties similar with quinidine and can also be used to treat cardiac arrhythmia or when the person is having an irregular heart rhythm. Reserpine is a white to pale buff to slightly yellow, odorless crystalline powder that can be darkened when they are exposed to light. Reserpine is your antihypertensive and an tranquilizer drug. Resinamine is a methyl reserpate ester. It is also used as antihypertensive and higher dose can cause mental depression. Diserpidine is a drug. Diserpidine, also known as 11-des methoxyreserpine, can be used as tranquilizer and antihypertensive agent. Next, we have Nox vomica, other name poison nut, quaker buttons, bachelor buttons, dog buttons, vomit nut, and crow fig. Nox vomica is consists of the dried, ripe seed. So yung nasa baba, so that is the dried, ripe seed of Strychnus Nox vomica. They are from the family Luganaceae and they contain not less than 1.2% strychnine. So that is one of the drug or the alkaloids given by your classmate in our example previously. Chemical constituent of Nox vomica contains the alkaloid strychnine, brucine, and also strychnicine, a glucoside luganine, fatty matter, cafeotanic acid, and copper. It contains about 2.5 to 3.5 bitter indole alkaloids. So strychnine is the toxic alkaloid and can be found in the central portion on the endosperm of the seed of Strychnus nox vomica. Brucine is chemically dimethoxystrychnine, is less toxic and can have a little physiological action. Brucine is usually found in the outer part of the seed. Vomicine and pseudostrychnine can also be found in Nox vomica, and they are considered as minor alkaloids. The seeds of Nux vomica also contains chlorogenic acid and cafutanic acid. The glucoside found in Nux vomica is called luganin. Other important constituents, they also contains hemocellulose that contains mannan and galactan, fatty matter, copper. Okay, so that is the component of the Nox strychnus, Nox vomica. Okay, so these are the indole nucleus. So strychnine and brucine have somewhat like similar structure. Nag-differ lang sila kung ano ang naka-attach kay R1 and R2. For strychnine, ang naka-attach kay R1 is H, same with R2. So H hydrogen dito pareho. Kay brucine is oxygen and methyl group dito and dito. But both contains an indole nucleus. We have the different tests to determine if your drug contains strychnine or not. So strychnine test, you will test your endosperm of the seed, add ammonium vanadate and sulfuric acid if it contains or if it will be color purple in the milder portion, your crude drug contains strychnine. Potassium dichromate test, so you will give strychnine with potassium dichromate and concentrated sulfuric acid, and it will produce violet color, so it also contains strychnine. Brucine, um, brucine test, one way to determine brucine is you add your crude drug with concentrated nitric acid, and if will turn into yellow to orange color, it consists of brucine. Okay, the properties or uses of Nux vomica is usually attributed to its component strychnine. In the mouth, strychnine will act as a bitter principle and can increase appetite and stimulates peristalsis. In chronic constipation, it can be used together with cascara to have an laxative effect. Strychnine is a chief alkaloid present in the seeds of Nox vomica. It acts as a bitter, increasing the flow of gastric juice. It can also have an effect of the CNS. It can deepen the respiration, quicken, and slow the heart rhythm. Strychnine has a stimulant action. It is considered as nervine or nerve tonic. So when we say nerve tonic, it can somehow sedate the CNS and can have a calming effect. In toxic doses, strychnine can cause violent tetanus, like it can cause severe convulsion that could lead to death. So somehow we considered strychnine as a very toxic chemical or toxic alkaloid. Ay, I'm sorry.